Hey, North Student Ministry, welcome back to another lesson in our series, After God's Own Heart. Tonight we're finishing up our topic of honoring God. God is holy, He is righteous, He is deserving of our honor in the ways that we speak and in the ways that we live. This week's challenge for your group is to record a video of you singing or reading the doxology. Your small group leader will explain what that is. Have him record or her record this video and send it to me tonight. And we'll pass this on to our worship director, Tim Twining, and he'll be the judge of whether these are good recordings or not. Prizes will be handed out the next time we meet together all here at North, the first Wednesday in December. Last week we looked at King David in his psalm praising God as king. And David noted his excellent attributes, his mighty acts, especially on behalf of his people. And it just emphasizes the point we're looking at in this series of our relationship with God is seen in how we honor Him. Tonight you can finish up a few more verses in that psalm, Psalm 145, 4 through 7. Go ahead and pause the video, have your small group leader have somebody read that, and then we'll jump back into the study. Our relationship with God is seen in how we honor Him. David's heart for God shines through in these verses that you just read. He wrote of honoring God's great works, the ways God relates to His people, as well as the goodness of God Himself. We live in a day and age when honoring God takes second place to many people's desire to honor themselves. Instead of praising God, we see very clearly in our culture today people that honor and desire to exalt themselves and praise themselves. Many people who we look up to in our culture, we would say that are heroes of ours or someone that we just respect. It could be a movie star, it could be an athlete, it could be a prominent figure in society. They, as individuals, strive for the perfect image. And in turn, because we look up to these types of people, we often seek to imitate them. However, when we do this, try to imitate some celebrity or person in our society, this sort of image, it's an inaccurate, deceptive portrayal of God in our lives. In public, we're not portraying the goodness of God and the greatness of God by imitating someone of this world. Today, instead of declaring the mighty works of the Lord, people boldly brag about their own beauty and their own uniqueness and their own greatness, rather than portray the greatness of God who created them uniquely. Anytime we shift our focus from God and His rightful position over all things, including us, we instead place ourselves there, and we fail to honor God. We honor ourselves. We fail to put Him first. This is similar to the church in Ephesus that Jesus confronted in the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verses 4. Jesus said, "But I have this against you. You have abandoned the love you had at first." Sure, the Ephesian church was doing great things. If we read verses 1 through 3 in chapter 2, it tells us that they worked hard for the Lord. And they even endured great difficulties for the Lord. They didn't put up with sin. They refused to allow evil people to corrupt the church. They knew God's word really, really well. They refused to give up in the face of persecution. They were a lot of good things the church of Ephesus was doing. However, they neglected one thing, Jesus said. They had failed to love God above all, honoring Him first over anything and anyone in their lives. To live in a way that honors God, we must not only love God, we must love Him first. The issue with Ephesus wasn't that they failed to work for God. It wasn't that they no longer loved God at all. It was that they didn't love Him first. So how do we recognize when first love has lost its place in our lives? We may have left God as our first love if we go for days without spending time in prayer or Bible study. That may be a sign that we have left God, our first love. We feel like worship when we come to church is just simply going through the motions. May be a sign that we have left our first love, God. We're more concerned about our image than our testimony before the Lord, or a testimony of the Lord before others, may be an indication that we lost our first love. Going to church is just seeming like a chore and we don't really want to do it. That may be an indication you've lost your first love. When we're able to sin without conviction, for sure, that's a sign that we may have lost our first love, as the church of Ephesus did. The best approach to loving and honoring God first is to do what King David did in Psalm 145. He focused on God and his works, his mighty acts, his splendor and glorious majesty, his wondrous works, his awe-inspiring acts, his greatness and goodness and his righteousness. This is what David focused on. These are all the words David used to describe God. David experienced the characteristics of God as he spent time with God. And they moved David to honor and love God in real ways. That's the key. Spending time with God grows your ability to love him and then honor him in the way that you live and speak. God is worthy of our worship, and to misplace attention or affections to worldly things which are rightly owed to God is called idolatry. As God's children, we are called to honor God above all else. God is worthy of our worship. Our relationship with God is seen in how we honor him. That's all for now. Enjoy your small group discussion time that you're about to go into. Your leaders have a few questions prepared. Be ready to participate in that. And we'll see you back here next time at North Student Ministry, where you are loved, you belong, and you are needed.